life has become more complex in the overwhelming sea of information. And life, when organized into species, relies upon genes to be its memory system. So man is an individual only because of his intangible memory. And memory cannot be defined, but it defines mankind.
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast dedicated to the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game.
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast about the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game and old-school post-apocalyptic adventuring. I'm Judge Forrest.
And I'm Judge James.
And on tonight's episode, we'll be talking about the rulebook, we'll be delving in and discovering the secrets of pure strain humans. We're going to kick things off with the Sentinel and the Rover. But first, let's go down in the shelter.
Down in the shelter.
Welcome to the Glowburn Shelter. This is where we highlight our Mutant Crawl Classics and Dungeon Crawl Classics gaming, what we've been running, playing, writing, reviewing, shopping for, and other systems as well related to the post-apocalyptic genre. So, James, what have you been up to?
You know, the Glowburn Shelter is rather cold right now, too. I think the challenge with recording in the middle of winter is it's friggin' cold, you know? So in the spirit and the holidays, for one of my events last month, for my last road crew adventure of 2017, I ran a holiday adventure called Santa's Frozen in Time.
Aww.
Which was my homage, because I'm always doing an homage, to the movies Elf, Santa Claus the movie, which was terrible, mashed up with Michael Curtis's Frozen in Time for DCC with a very healthy dose of post-apocalypse from Mutant Crawl Classics with a special guest feature of Hugh Grant as the Prime Minister from Love Actually. And actually, it was kind of a fun take on a zero level funnel. What I did was everyone had two characters. They were both zero level. One was an elf and one was a buddy, like Buddy the Elf from who was, played by Will Ferrell.
Yep.
What we did for this funnel was the zero level characters either got a random first, second, or third level magic spell or a random mutation or defect, depending on if they were an elf or a buddy. It's a little bit different than your typical funnel where characters have no powers. In this game, all the characters had crazy powers. And since, zero level characters aren't the best casters, depending on things we did at the table, if the players did something festive or wore something festive to the game. We played this at our local game store, the Phantom of the Attic in Oakland, which is a neighborhood in Pittsburgh area. If someone had this been crazy, they got a candy cane. And I was giving out candy canes. And you could spend the candy canes like Spellburn or Glowburn.
Excellent.
And it was a point per candy cane if you just tossed it back into the bucket. We need a Santa Claus bucket. Or if you ate the candy cane, it was 2 points. So there was a couple scenes where players had 60 seconds to pound a bunch of candy canes to get their spells. Probably not the safest thing to do for choking hazard, but it was a lot of fun. I stuck pretty close to the original adventure module, so that was fun. I just threw in some artifacts that were toys and some holiday-themed items. In the very last scene, not long after they, saved Hugh Grant, the Prime Minister from Love Actually, in the very last scene, they had these like reindeer portal pads, and they discovered that Santa's sleigh couldn't just be powered by reindeer. You had to subject yourself to be morphed into a reindeer.
Oh.
And the players to decide who amongst them was going to step on the pad and be painfully transformed into reindeers. And they need 9, 8 plus Rudolph. So that was the adventure. It was a fun twist for a one-off. Had a good time. And that was how we wrapped up our festive holiday season here. Did my first playtest for my Crawling Under a Broken Moon adventure. So that's in the bag. That's the one I'm writing. I got a little flack on G Plus for the title. A few folks may know. Right now, the working title is Shades of Grey, which can be interesting if you add any number to the front of it. So I think Reed and I have had a couple conversations, maybe playing with the title. Just because, we don't want to have this be an adult-themed game.
Right.
I had to promise him on a thread that I was not going to have any bondage in the game. I promise.
Might sell better that way. I'm just saying,
BDSM aliens. I mean, look, it has to be appropriate to, I'm sure, like a 13 and up crowd, not just like the late night Gary Con, lots of beer crowd.
Drunken revelry. Yeah.
I do want to do some play testing. Maybe I'll bring it to GaryCon and run it with a full 50 Shades of Grey plus, fire in the sky and aliens that fits. The other game I've done so far, it's DCC related. I did just kick off the 2018 Road Crew events, the world tour for DCC, and it's not MCC, but I ran Michael Curtis's Dread on Demon Crown Hill this past Sunday at our local library event with the Norwin Game Nights, our local game club. So that was a lot of fun. Did some really cool, crazy, random crap in there. That's an adventure that could be a challenge for a tighter 3-hour spot. There's a lot of rooms to explore. So we pared some parts of it down, but that was a lot of fun. Second level adventure. If you're looking for something to run, I believe that adventure is only available. If you've heard the title but haven't found it online, I think it's only available through your friendly local gaming store.
Yes, that's correct.
So make a partnership, find the adventure. It's a ton of fun. So how about you, Forrest? What have you been playing?
Oh, not a lot. I haven't had much time to game because of life with a capital L, but I did very recently play in Mark Plurd's MCC campaign, which you are a part of, but weren't there that night.
I couldn't play this past week.
Because you have life too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am playing in there as Pierre Tramp, who is a pure strain human. Do you know what that's about? Because everybody else is like, what are you talking about, Pierre Tramp?
No, I have no idea what Pierre Tramp means. Except I figure you're just like maybe a French vagabond.
No. You have to go back to the first edition Gamma World book, Dungeon Master Guide.
Which I don't have, and I never read.
Monster Manual.
No.
Whatever. Any of the first edition stuff, and switch Pierre and Tramp around, and you'll figure it out.
Tramp Pierre?
Yes. This is an old school artist, Dave Trampier.
Oh, okay.
There's a myth, a legend behind the guy. It's pretty cool stuff. Well, we can talk about that some other time. But anyway, so I played Pierre Tramp, a pure strain human sentinel who wields a two-handed jawbone club with great vigor. That night was awesome. It was sort of awesome. I rolled 3 critical successes in one night.
Nice.
Oh, it was awesome. And one of them was at the critical moment that killed off a living metal, or a robot, as we commonly call them. However, I did also find out that the combat artifact check, when you fail that critically, that's a problem, and your artifact is no good anymore.
Yeah.
So, I ruined a perfectly good orb of some kind. I don't know what it was, but it fell to pieces and just kind of clattered off the robot's head, and then it was, I think, 2 rounds later or so when I was able to whack it and kill it. So, anyway, that was a lot of fun. I don't play fighters too terribly often, so that was different and kind of fun for me. Also, finally put the finishing touches on Killer of Giants. It's entering layout. In fact, before we got on to record, I saw an email fly through from Reed, but didn't read it. No pun intended. Anyway, so that's pretty much in the bag and done and ready to roll and get onto the production side of things, and very excited about that. And again, thanks to those who helped me playtest that here at home and at convention games. I appreciate that. That's your names are there, and they'll be in bright shining lights for the entire world to see, because everybody plays role-playing games, right?
They all play Crawling Under a Broken Moon, so...
They should, if they don't already. The other thing is that I've been working on writing a Call of Cthulhu adventure that I'm actually quite particularly excited about. But it's a Call of Cthulhu adventure, so I can't tell you anything about it or I'll spoil it, right? It's an investigative game. You got to go investigate it yourself. But anyway, I've been consulting with some people in the know with Call of Cthulhu, and they seem to like what they see. So anyway, that'll be a while before I get that done. And that's been about it. Again, life has found a wonderful way of interfering in everything, and I'm hoping to get back on the bandwagon soon and do a lot more gaming. I was just, we'll talk about this at the end of the show, but I was just looking at GaryCon and obsessively trying to figure out what games I'm going to be playing in, and there are just way too many choices and way too many possibilities of iterations of things, the way things could fall. So anyway, I put on my obsessive logistics operations hat and went through and tried to figure out every single possible combination. So,
and I'm just hoping to show up right now. That's
yes.
all I care about is getting there.
I'm hoping you show up too. I want to try Frostgrave.
That's right. I got to pack that. I didn't mention that. I have my notes to mention that, but I have been playing a lot of Frostgrave. I know it's not an RPG, but it's a minis game with RPG themings and great campaign play. But I've been obsessing over Frostgrave mostly because I've been very stressed out, and painting tiny miniatures calms me down. And Frostgrave is a great game for your miniatures collection.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's awesome. We have a lot of voices of the Ancient Ones. I hear them in the background. They're calling to me over the ancient interwebs. So maybe we should go listen to them.
Well, let's do that.
Voices of the Ancient Ones.
All right, so the voices, they are a-calling, and we do appreciate you reaching out across the well of time to us here in our post-apocalyptic abode. And our first voice of the Ancient One is from someone that he's mysterious, and I don't think anyone's ever heard of him before. His name is DM Kojo. Wow, he's
who?
The Great Mystery. DM actually stands for Demystery, just so you know. So, greetings, glowers. I wanted to see what your thoughts are about designing a campaign world for MCC. It is my understanding that Judge Jim Wampler intentionally left out much background on the Terra AD campaign setting, including what caused the apocalypse in the first place. For my own campaign setting, I want to do more than just string together pre-published modules. I want my campaign world to have both published material as well as my own flavor. As creative judges, I would love to hear if you feel I should define any of the following elements of my campaign world before starting play, or should I build it as it comes? Although GMs have been debating some of these questions since RPGs began, I feel that some of these pre-campaign elements may be more important in a post-apocalyptic game because of how they may impact what unfurls for the players. 1. The cause of the apocalypse for my campaign world. 2. What the pre-apocalypse world was like. 3. A map of my campaign world. And 4. An endgame where there's a big reveal. Think Planet of the Apes. Thanks, and see you at GaryCon. DM Kojo. Okay, so I'll kind of pop through these in your 1 to 4 format. Personally, I like my campaigns to grow organically and from like the micro perspective. That's what I actually enjoy more when I'm playing. Prior to starting the campaign, I love to have these big plans. And for some reason, the campaigns where I've had these giant plans, they kind of fall on their face. My 2 longest running campaigns so far, one of which is a DCC campaign I'm running now right on the Purple Planet. I never expected to get to the Purple Planet. We just found our way there. So I like that they grow organically. So I think, I don't know if this is really in your 1 through 4. I guess I kind of answer the question of 3 and 4. You know, the map of your campaign world, I don't think it's that important, especially if there be some player agency and designing the world like from their actions. Maybe just map out a small portion of it. That's how I would do it. Because if it's mysterious to you as well as the players, there's less of a chance for you to slip and reveal something that maybe would ruin that later mystery, like the big end game, which I've been able to pull that off one time in my gaming history. I think it's a great idea, and maybe just keep it vague so that there's a lot of room for you to work into that end game later. The cause for the apocalypse, maybe if you're looking to have this be something where it's unique, have it be something where they have to figure it out over time and not just start with it like in a post-apocalyptic nuclear fallout laden world. Maybe just have there be some mystery to that. And that could be part of the big reveal. Maybe they think there's been a nuclear apocalypse in their head, but the reality is, you know, when the axis of the Earth tilted, some of the, I don't know, there were a lot of Chernobyl incidents at power plants, and that's why the radiation's there. There was no war. I mean, there's ways to play with that. And then what the pre-apocalypse world was like. I don't know. I think, again, it depends on how much you want the players to figure out. I think that with the post-apocalyptic genre, there's a lot of room for player assumptions. And do you want to ride that train of the assumptions, or do you want to have it be a unique experience? I am totally guilty of stringing together modules and riding the stereotypical train. So I'm not saying my way of doing it's right. That's just what I've been doing. But I think deep down, I would prefer to have it be something where maybe I don't know what's going on. So that's my thoughts. How about you, Forrest?
I agree with you on many fronts there. My answer is a little bit long-winded, but DM Kojo, you were calling us creative judges, so let's create something here. In one of our earlier episodes, I think it was the investigative episode, we talked about the conspiramid, which is a way of layering bad guys behind bad guys so that the characters don't know who's really at the top of the conspiracy pulling strings. I think you can do this in a weird way with great disasters too. For example, I had one adventure set on the shores of a dried up Lake Michigan, basically the ruins of Milwaukee. It was my anti-water world for James. So how did this happen? How did Lake Michigan dry up? Obviously something with the climate, but was the climatological event, was it localized or was it larger? And you kind of have to investigate and find out in time, depending on what the players and I find out, because we find this together. It's an emergent thing that we discover together. I like that. In fact, I really love that aspect of a campaign. But anyway, we'll learn what the next step up in the disaster is. So maybe someone dammed up the lake, up the chain, because there was famine up there in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan or something. But what caused the famine? Maybe the plants were sick. What caused them to be sick? Radiation, let's say. What caused the radiation? Maybe a leak at a nuclear reactor, which was caused by a lack of skilled people to control the reactor who were killed off by disease, which was set off by an asteroid that brought killer bacteria to the Earth, and on and on and on and on, right? So I like the creation on the fly with my players of that campaign world. Really, it grows organically from the bottom up. And I think this makes for a more believable great disaster. Allows you to, as a judge, to take cues from your players because they have buy-in. They'll speculate all night long about how the great disaster occurred, and you can riff off of that. You can just make sure you have a pen handy to take notes with. And then you implement their great disaster, as it were, into the great disaster conspiramid. So you're letting the world emerge through the emergent play. That's the way I ideally will do it. When I was younger, I liked maps and stuff. Nowadays, I'm not a huge fan of mapping the entire campaign world ahead of time. And the reason is I like the idea of terra incognita. If you look at the maps back from the 1300s, even some in the early 1400s, they had no idea, well, even later, they had no idea that there was America there. So that was terra incognita. We don't know what's over there beyond the horizon past Iceland. And I like that, honestly, myself. I think that, especially in a post-apocalyptic game, you don't know, the players don't know. That kind of deepens the mystery and makes it easier to be in character with that mystery. Does that make some sense?
I think so.
I really, you don't know what's over the horizon, so let's go find out what's over the horizon. And you discover that together. I really like that. So our next Voice of the Ancient One comes from Samuel Dester. And Samuel asks, what was each host's introduction to post-apocalyptic gaming? What is your favorite non-RPG post-apocalyptic media? And what is your favorite non-MCC mutant and or post-apocalyptic RPG? James, do you want to go ahead and tackle that first?
Sure. And I hope we hit all of the bullet points you're asking for us, Samuel. So the very first post-apocalyptic RPG that I ran / GM'd was probably my own alternative conversion of a really, I don't think it was that well known, a game called Rapture: The Second Coming, an RPG about theological terror. I found it in a used bin at my game store up at Penn State. This is around 1998, I believe, or 1999. And the basic premise of the game was that the rapture occurred. You know, that thing it's in some Christian doctrines have like the rapture and people like float up to the heavens or whatever.
Or dinosaurs.
Yeah, there you go.
The Velociraptor.
The Velociraptor. So that occurred, but pretty much just for children. And every religion figured they got something wrong because like everyone who's like, over the age of 13 is left alive. But like, the Antichrist shows up, takes over Europe. Some of the stuff's happening. The place of the souls of children is empty. The guff is empty. So, the children are born. They're soulless and parents are weeping. It was depressing as hell. And
I hate it when that happens.
for some reason, I thought it was interesting. So I converted it to like a modern setting for Alternity, which was that old TSR RPG system for sci-fi. It would have been considered maybe a recent post-apocalypse because all that terrible stuff was in the middle of happening. Demons were on the earth. So it wasn't your traditional Fallout-esque, Mad Max-esque post-apocalypse. But that's the first one I can say was an RPG that I ran and delved into, is dealing with that. For non-RPG media, if we're talking non-tabletop, I'd have to say Fallout as one of my favorites, just because that was like the first time I played an RPG or a video game that felt very post-apocalyptic that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's just a favorite for that end. But you probably mean movies and stuff. So I'm going to say my favorite non-RPG I guess my favorite fiction, and I'm going to say besides Fury Road, that's too easy, is pretty depressing. So one of my favorite post-apocalyptic books is On the Beach,
Oh, yeah.
So which is horribly depressing. I think I've mentioned it before. And my favorite post-apocalyptic movies include cheesy 80s nuclear war flicks like The Day After and Threads. I think Threads, I've seen it on YouTube. I had to string it together. It's hard to find, which is like a very detailed, like sort of a documentary / movie about what happens after a nuclear war in Great Britain. And it is viciously depressing. It's named Threads. At the very end, spoiler alert, the people that have survived, 30, 40 years later, because that's what it goes into, is like what happens decades afterwards. Not only are they're riddled with cancer, but they get their clothing by pulling apart the threads of stuff they find on the ground and that they harvest. It is brutal. And I honestly get a kick out of it. I find it very intriguing. So that's my take on the post-apocalypse on that side for non-RPG media. And see, what is your favorite non-MCC mutant or post-apocalyptic RPG? I guess Crawling Under a Broken Moon would be cheating. So we'll skip that for a second. And I'm going to say, I haven't played it yet, but I'm going to toss in Day After Ragnarok, which uses Savage Worlds. And it's like 40s era, Nazi killing, giant snake is draped over the planet that's thousands of miles long. Opportunity for big band music plus like Fury Road themes. So that's kind of cool. So I have it. I keep meaning to convert it to DCC, but I just haven't yet. But yeah. So, and then favorite, if you ask what was our favorite non-post-apocalyptic game that's not MCC, well, I'm going to say Dungeon Crawl Classics because I have to. I mean, it's required. No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, that's with Savage Worlds and the Cypher system being close. Dungeon Crawl Classics is. I mean, I'm in a room surrounded by Doug Kovacs art. It's in my house. I mean, I'm obsessed. My family's obsessed. We are obsessed. So, Judge Forrest, how about you?
All right, so my introduction to post-apocalyptic gaming is Gamma World First Edition, which I started playing back in 1980, if I remember correctly, or 81. Anyway, I was young. My favorite non-RPG post-apocalyptic media is probably Thundar the Barbarian, but I do really like Mad Max a lot. All the movies except the movie which shall go unnamed. And, of course, Wizards. Wizards hit me at a young age, and I loved it, and still love it. And actually, I'd add to that Heavy Metal. That is also actually a post-apocalyptic movie in many ways. So your last question, what is your favorite non-MCC mutant and or post-apocalyptic RPG? That question can be read two ways. So I don't know if I understand it fully, so I'll answer it two ways. If you're asking for my favorite game that is a mutant / post-apocalyptic game, I fall back on Gamma World First Edition or maybe Metamorphosis Alpha. If you're asking my favorite non-post-apocalyptic game, that would probably be Call of Cthulhu. And DCC would be a very close second. And I noticed, speaking of which, at GaryCon that somebody is running a mashup, like DCC and Call of Cthulhu, not just using Cthulhu creatures, but like a mashup of the systems. So I'm intrigued by this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to slot it in, but I'm very intrigued by it. So that is that. Do you want to hit the next question there, James?
Yes, this is from Matt Hildebrand, and Matt asks, what rule can you simply not abide? That is, when running your favorite post-apocalyptic system, what rule or aspect of setting do you change to make the game better / more fun? Okay, so I think it's fair to say, and I'm very fortunate that Mutant Crawl Classics has quickly become my favorite post-apocalyptic game. Because I was a host of the show prior to it coming out, so it would have kind of stunk if it was like third or something like that. So we're going to talk about MCC here, and a rule that I can't abide. Not that I can't abide it. I do tend to scale the complexity modifiers back a bit because that way my players have easier access to artifacts, and a lot of that has to do with I'm playing with younger players typically for my MCC campaign. It's run in a local game club with young kids, not young, but under the age of 18. A lot of them are 12 and 13. I think they love artifacts, so I hate it when they have such low rolls and you have to roll like a 13 or higher or something like that to get something decent. I just like to see them succeed, and I scale those back a little bit, not a lot. I'll ask them sometimes like, tell me how you're going to check out this artifact. And if they give me something creative, I'll change the complexity modifier a little bit. And the close second to that is the fact that if you're a mutant and you roll like a 1, you'll lose the mutation permanently.
Oh,
that's rough.
That is pretty rough. I mean, that said, I don't really hate anything about the rules in MCC, honestly. Yeah, your mutation ones are that's pretty brutal. The one thing that I can do without, really, and it's not like a deal breaker or anything, but the planetary hothouse setting for me, it's okay. It's not the best, but I just want more variety. And in fact, I'm planning on writing. I've been planning for about a year now. I just haven't put pen to paper yet, outside of scratching down some ideas for an adventure set in a very, very cold place beyond the devil-infested lands.
Ooh. So
yeah, the pole of the planet. I'm thinking there's going to still be some ice up there. At least there is in my little world. So yeah, that's the one thing. The hothouse setting, it's fine. It's fine, but I don't take it as gospel truth. So let's see. Then Mark Plurd. Oh, Mark. He says, "Greetings, glowing ones. I'm curious how you think that the game's experience or feel will change based on the classes being played at a given table. My group is almost all human, and I feel like it has shifted subtly to be a little less gonzo as a result compared to the earlier sessions where we had a, quote, better mix." I'd say, Mark, you can have gonzo with all the humans. Just go watch Turbo Kid. All right? I mean, so spoiler, there was one person in there that wasn't really human, but he wasn't a mutant either. So for gonzo, all you have to do is follow Turbo Kid's example and go for fountains of blood. Just blood spraying everywhere. You're talking about our characters now, aren't you? Forget what I said about blood spraying everywhere.
I don't know what he's talking about us not being gonzo. My character in that campaign, and maybe it's because of the game I was in, and when I wasn't there and you were there, it was different. But, in our game, I've got my shaman is running around, like, just taking down people like a complete badass.
Yeah.
And which should not be happening with a shaman. Now, it was a lot of lucky rolling on my side, but it shouldn't have been happening. So it was still kind of gonzo in its own way. I like the feel and the comparison of Mark's game compared to the game I run for my home crew, because Mark's game feels a lot like Fallout or Mad Max, or just like, I don't want to say it's not gonzo, it's just not X-Men. I feel like my mutant and manimal laden table at our game club is very much like a crazy psychopathic X-Men spinoff. Everyone's got tons of powers. We're heavy the other way. We have all mutants, and like for 8 players, and mutants, manimals, and plantians, and then 1 healer and 1 rover.
Wow.
And the powers blasting, sometimes the rover and the healer like kind of stand back, and like we're not getting involved in that crap at all. And it's a totally different kind of game, and I love that. It's 2 very different games.
So my campaign is kind of halfway between the two. We've got a good mix of manimals, mutants, and plantians versus pure strain humans. But again, the characters are only part of the equation, because you also have your setting, you also have the encounters that they're going to encounter, and you have the dice rolls. I think a lot of gonzo just arises from the dice, quite honestly. Or depending on what kind of foes you present for your characters and such, you can ramp up the gonzo with any set of characters, I believe.
So good question, Mark.
Yep.
Let's shift over to Kevin KJ O'Brien. Sup? That's how he asked it. Sup?
Sup?
Sup? I try to keep my Terra AD bleak and dangerous. There are no towns or cities, no shops, no roadside inns, no welcoming faces. Just the tribal PCs versus the glowing world. If an intelligent and or organized group was introduced to my campaign, the PCs probably wouldn't want to go near it, as it would likely be a murderous robot conclave, tribe of cannibals, the gene police, etc. This style of campaign world has led to a recurring problem. Without the typical fantasy tropes of tavern rumors, job post boards, king's messengers, or the sole surviving farmer who ran through the night, how do the PCs come into adventure seeds or information? Some obvious ones jump out at me, like an AI patron or found map pointing the PCs to something. But how many times can you use those? I'd love to hear y'all's input on this. Keep it glowing. Kevin KJ O'Brien. Kevin, it sounds like you're running a version of The Road, right now. I mean, I can just smell Viggo Mortensen all over your game having to... I mean, that does sound bleak. It's bleak, man. It's bleak.
That is bleak.
I guess there's a couple ways you can play with this. One thing is put a lot of NPC captives in front of your party. I know if I was in your game, if you were throwing that many cannibals against me, I would just start eating people, okay, myself. Because if the cannibals are the ones that are ruling your world, I'm going to become a cannibal myself. And my party, we're all going to start eating people. So if that happens, if you start putting more NPC captives in front of the party, instead of killing them to get, maybe they need to keep them to get their information and maybe not eat them right away or marinate them and get the information while they're marinating them or cook them slowly. Honestly, though, I don't think that tavern rumors are necessary to a campaign. So even in my fantasy games, I rarely use taverns as a source of an adventure. I could see for the first adventure, but not for later ones. One maybe minor suggestion, in Numenera, there is this data sphere, which is like a constantly running eternal internet in the background. So maybe the party has some way to tap into that. Maybe they find an artifact. Maybe the campaign revolves around a patron AI that is running in that data sphere type world, internet, and that's who speaks to them. But they have some nefarious plan, and the party has to, do the bidding of this patron AI, and that's how they get their adventures while consuming everyone in their wake. So, Judge Forrest, what do you got for Mr. O'Brien?
So I have a few ideas. The first of which seems so simple it's trite, and that is to have something fall from the sky. And I mean literally have something fall from the sky. And in fact, I'd have many things falling at the same time and have them, fall in different locations that the characters can explore, but have them interrelated. And somehow these things are interrelated, and this somehow could lead to a campaign conclusion that actually reveals the nature of the great disaster itself. So throw things out of the sky at the characters. Also, you'd mentioned a job post board in your letter. Who's to say there isn't a job post board? Maybe the village elders have access to a view screen that shows interesting videos from a traveling drone, and occasionally, they might say, hey, look at that. That's Mount so-and-so. We should go check out what's happening there. There's something shiny. Or they see the vegetation. Isn't that how they caught, Bin Laden? Was through the vegetation?
I wasn't there.
There was something about the War on Terror where they looked at the vegetation in some place and they realized, oh, they're in this specific region. And so they went and nailed the Taliban or something. Anyway, it was because of the plants that were there in a video. So anyway, I would assume that the elders in your village there are savvy to that kind of thing, and they would recognize that. So that might be something they can indicate where adventure lies. In my own game, my own MCC game, I like using lack of water as a motivator. If you don't move, you die. It's pretty simple. But then again, I like hex crawls and point crawls with shorter encounters rather than I like long techno dungeon crawls. But if you keep them thirsty, you keep them moving. Another similar stunt is what I call the Korgoth of Barbaria plot mover. James, do you know Korgoth of Barbaria?
Nope.
Oh my goodness. Okay, go YouTube that. When we're done, immediately go YouTube Korgoth of Barbaria.
Probably going forward, say questions like, Jim, you probably don't know who Korgoth of Barbaria is.
This.
You don't know who wizards are. You should probably. That's how you should start these conversations.
No, this is way beyond wizards. This, I think you'll love it. It's you got to see it. Anyway, so the idea is that you poison one of the characters with a slow-acting poison, and then you send them out to do a deed in order to get the antidote. So they have to go find something for somebody in order to get the antidote.
That's just point and escape from New York is what that is.
Yeah, it's similar. It's very similar. Yep. But the threat of imminent death is a great motivator.
Going full Pliskin.
Full Pliskin. But Korgoth of Barbaria, you've got to check that. Oh my goodness. Be prepared to laugh a long time. It's great. I think that's it for the Voices of the Ancient Ones. Thank you for submitting your emails, and we hope to hear more from you. We love to take your questions, and we find them entertaining, and we hope you find our answers entertaining.
The Great Disaster.
Go!
The Pure Strain Human. Who is it? What is it? What are they doing in this weird post-apocalyptic Terra AD? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So the Pure Strain Human covers 4 classes. You got your Sentinel, you have your Rover, you have your Healer, and you have your Shaman. So for this episode of Glowburn, we're going to cover the first 2, the Sentinel and the Rover, and kind of dig into them. And then on a future episode, we'll talk about the Healer and the Shaman. And you can kind of see where this is going. We'll get to mutants eventually, but we're starting with the Pure Strain Human because personally, I don't say a preference, but I really like Pure Strain Humans. I like the idea of being, someone who designed for the prior worlds, but, is stuck in this crazy wasteland. Whereas I think mutants are sort of designed to live in the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. So in general, what do Pure Strain Humans get? Because there are some commonalities amongst all 4 Pure Strain Human classes. And I want to think, if I'm not mistaken, that on one of the early episodes of, it might have been on Spellburn, where Judge Jim Wampler talked about how the Pure Strain Human was originally going to be its own class by itself.
Yep.
And it got broken up into 4 classes instead. So first off the bat, if you're a Pure Strain Human, you're going to be better at artifact checks. Not a huge amount better, but a Sentinel goes from a +2 to a +10 from levels 1 through 10, whereas a Shaman is a +3 to a +12. Where if you're looking at a Plantian, I think they go to +6 maximum, a Mutant's maybe +8, Manimal's +7. So if you're a Pure Strain Human class, expect that the artifacts are going to be there for you. And if not there for you, they're going to work better in your hands on average. So that's something a Pure Strain Human gets. And I would say that, the Pure Strain Humans are a bit reliant on these artifacts. This is where their powers are going to come from. And judges should keep that in mind. We've said this in previous episodes, because if you don't have enough artifacts in the game, it's going to hurt your Pure Strain Human classes for sure.
Well, and not only that, but they tend to break artifacts too. At least some of us do, like I did a week ago. But anyway, so there's, artifacts don't last forever.
True.
It's not like they're not indestructible. Some of them, you got to get batteries for them too. So
yes,
you want to keep feeding that stuff to your players. If you want another motivator for an adventure, send them out for batteries. Send them on a battery run. I mean, really, go find C cells. The meta pack's running out. We need C cells in order to heal people in the village. Plenty of opportunities there.
The other aspect that Pure Strain Humans have is that they have an AI recognition bonus. So they have a +2 bonus to AI recognition rolls that is just Pure Strain Humans get. So that's also an advantage, especially if you have a campaign with robots. And the last thing that you get from a Pure Strain Human for all of them is the regenerating luck of some kind, the Darwinian luck, which regenerates at a rate of either 1 point per every 24 hours for, I think, Sentinels and Healers. I think it's 2 every 24 hours for Rovers. And then for the Shaman, unfortunately, because I play a Shaman, it's 1 every week.
Right.
I think it's to keep you from
glow burning all the time.
Glow burning the heck out of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's understandable. I get that. But in general, I think you have a more stable character build with your Pure Strain Humans, since mutations can be messy and create weird and bizarre combos. The only thing is your stable character build may be more likely to blow themselves to hell, since they'll be clamoring for artifacts they think they could use better than the mutants, only to find out they can't, and then they die like in a pool of radiation.
No, interesting point. And I can't recall if this was a conversation I had with Jim Wampler at Gamehole, or if it was something we talked about on the show. I don't recall, but I remember him saying that, and this is like the secret that's out in the open, that Pure Strain Humans are actually mutants. But you know what their mutation is?
No.
That they don't have mutations. Think about that for a minute.
What?
The pure strain human mutation is that they cannot have mutations.
Okay.
So they're not just the direct descendants of the ancient ones. There's more to it than that. That's how they survive, is by not mutating. I'm hearing a lot of silence on that end, James.
This is deep, okay? This is deep. This to me is like handing me a basketball and saying, the trick to this basketball is it's not round. It's got infinite angles.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, okay. I'm hearing you.
I thought it was intriguing. When you talk about stability, I mean, that's as stable as you can get in a post-apocalyptic setting. You know, you don't get more stable than not being able to mutate.
No, it's true. And I see it. I see it based on some of the rules where it says, like, anyone can get this thing happen to them except for pure strain human. I get it. Mm-hmm. You know, the thing is, in my brain, because I take everything back, if you go back to the very first Glowburn, that Judge Forrest and Judge Bill kind of say can come on and talk, you know, I was allowed to become part of this glorious gang. I discussed, you know, one of my very first RPG experiences, which was that game Crystallis for the Nintendo, where you awaken from being kept frozen for, you know, 100 years, 1,000 years or whatever, and you're a non-mutant or whatever. It's cool. It's just, It's a bit mind-blowing, hence the crickets. And the crickets are probably mutated too.
They probably are. Yeah. So the Sentinel. Should we move on to the Sentinel?
Yeah, let's go talk about the Sentinel. Let's discuss this armor-clad warrior of the future.
Okay, so what is the Sentinel? Should we read right out of the rulebook?
Yeah, let's do a direct quote there. How about that?
Page 26. You are your tribe's protector and its first line of defense. You are the hardened warrior who explores the ruins and taboo lands, always with an eye out for enemies and danger. You use your specialized knowledge of the artifact weapons and armor of the Ancient Ones to better protect your team, and to survive the many hazards of Terra AD. You are not trapped in a world full of your enemies, they are trapped in it with you. I like that.
I like it too. So what is the role of the Sentinel then?
I view the Sentinel as it's similar to the warrior in DCC, of course, that's easy to see. But I view the Sentinel as kind of a warrior/technician. You know, when it comes to armor and arms, they get a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a bonus that others don't. So in some ways, they're kind of like a combat technician in certain ways.
Yeah, they're really close to the warrior from DCC, but they lack, you know, the D die kind of, although we'll get to the artifact bonus die in a second. They lack a more general covers everything D die, and they don't have a lucky weapon. So they're a little different on that side. Rules wise, you get a D12 hit points, you have the Darwinian luck, and you have the AI recognition bonus. And the big deal with the Sentinel is their artifact bonus die with weapons and armor. So as the Sentinel progresses, they have at every level their artifact die, which starts at D2, goes up a D3, a D4, a D5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14. Up a step each level. And that is added to any rolls, any artifact checks they make when examining artifacts and armor. And it's added to their attack rolls when using an artifact or weapon. So figure this. A third level Sentinel with like a mazer rifle gets a +3 to attack plus 1d4 for their artifact bonus plus their agility modifier.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yep. That's pretty handy.
You know what's funny? I didn't realize that. Again, I didn't realize that when I first read through the rules last summer. I mean, I thought, Sentinel, there's the D die at. That artifact bonus die, that's where your D die is. So it's just not a D die. It's just something different. So it is there, but I think your idea of a warrior technician for us is dead on.
Honestly, I like that subtlety myself. You know, don't get me wrong. I love the Mighty Deed, and I've seen it used to great effect many times at the table. But the Sentinel in MCC is a more subtle breed, I guess, than the straight. It's not a barbarian, right? It's more of a sly fighter, I guess. And I kind of like that. I figure, you know, in a post-apocalyptic setting, your brains have to count for something, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't survive. And I think that a well role-played Sentinel, you could have a very intelligent Sentinel, and roleplay it well because they're not so reliant on that mighty deed die.
I think maybe if you want to play a barbarian type character, I think you're gonna have to play the Sentinel. I think that is.
I agree.
If you're playing a lower intelligence Sentinel, you are gonna appear more like a barbarian. You know, so yeah, but it's not optimal. So what works for me for the Sentinel, because we're gonna go through how what works, what doesn't. What works is I think this is a sturdy combatant for this broken world of tomorrow known as Terra AD. As Forrest said, it's best to not try to be a big dumb warrior. Intelligence is incredibly important for artifact checks. So these are the smart soldiers of tomorrow. But if you do want to play a character that's good at smashing, and you aren't a mutant, maybe your 0 level mutants didn't survive and you have to play a smasher, this is your smasher. Just keep in mind, if you do find like a vibro axe or whatever, you're going to be better at checking it than your smashing manimal in the party or whatnot.
Yeah.
What works for you for this character class, Forrest?
I mean, I guess I already said it. I really just like the fact that they are a little bit less brutish, I guess is the word I'm going to look for, than their DCC counterparts. I like the fact that they are technically savvy to some extent. I think that adds incentive to the element of role playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. That's
one thing I really like about it. And frankly, I like about all the classes in MCC is there's incentive to role play them very well. Not that there's not in DCC. There is. But the constraints are a little bit looser, I guess. I feel like it gives you a little bit more freedom.
So what's going to be a challenge for a Sentinel? What doesn't work as a Sentinel character? I want to be clear. This is like what doesn't work like in play, not like what doesn't work because it's a crappy rules or something like that, But like, you are reliant as a Sentinel on combat-based artifacts. So you do need to have those weapons, and you may want to, change your tactics based on what you're carrying. You are worried about your C cells and your different batteries you gotta be lugging around and how many uses you have left. You gotta keep that in mind as you're playing the game. A D12 hit points are great as well, but a strong mutant may own you, especially a poorly equipped Sentinel in combat.
Yeah, one of the other, I guess, weaknesses, and this is not just a weakness for Sentinels, this is a weakness for all pure strain humans, is the fact that they don't have any kind of real defense against mental attacks in particular.
Yeah.
And they're kind of at the mercy of mental attacks, but I think I have something later that I will address that with, but we'll get to that later.
So what are some examples in fiction of Sentinels?
Well, I'll start with Weehawk from your favorite movie, Wizards. I also think Zed from Zardoz. Again, he's a thinker. He's not just a warrior. He's a really psychedelic thinker, but he is a thinker in this instance. Also, Cobalt 60 from Cobalt 60 and Tarna from Heavy Metal. And if you don't know who Tarna is in Heavy Metal, you haven't watched it or you weren't paying attention. And also one that I did a mutagenesis on a long time ago, or took the idea from, which is John Prophet from the Prophet comics, which is it is a post-apocalyptic setting. Anyway, it's just kind of a more intelligent, sleeker fighter type. What about you? What do you think of in fiction there, James?
I'm going to bookend my examples with what I think is probably the most barbaric and to the least barbaric, closer to what should be a Sentinel. So everyone knows who Yor is. You know who Yor is, right? Yor, Hunter from the Future. It's that movie where it's got, what was that guy who plays that character? Crap.
I'm no good with actor names.
Is it Reb Brown, right? It was Reb Brown, I think.
Okay.
And it starts off with like, yours world, he's the man. That's like the lyrics of the song is like, yours world, he's the man. And it's just him, going through the wasteland with a stone axe, killing dinosaurs, and later he's shooting lasers. I think Your Hunter from the Future is like the most epic MCC movie of all time. I think Judge Jim went back in time, found that movie, and then brought it to the future stuff. And I don't know. That movie, that is MCC. I guess you could have just watched it when he was, younger. And
that could have happened.
Yeah. Time machines aren't necessary, but Judge Jim, he could do it. We'll start with another barbarian one. Blaster from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. You got Master Blaster going on there. So Blaster, he's more of the Sentinel. Now going towards more of what's a true Sentinel, I would say Imperator Furiosa from Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes,
she has great combat skills, an awesome pneumatic steampunk cyber arm.
And she's really, really smart.
Exactly. Yeah. She has the truck rigged how she wants it to go. I think the last two are super close. Not only her, but Nausicaa from Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which was a Miyazaki movie. And in both of those, really, you have characters that are brilliant, crafty tinkers who can hold their own in a fight. I think Nausicaa especially. You know, she's got her wind glider she flies on, and she's got heart, and she's got personality, and she can fight if she needs to. I think they are the perfect Sentinels.
And I think there is actually a lot of territory to be mined there in Miyazaki's movies for MCC. And to your point, with some pretty deep characterization. Just go grab some Studio Ghibli movies and start watching, and
absolutely,
man, you will come up with tons of ideas. That's great.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for that one because when I was invited to be on Glowburn, that's I went out hunting for movies that I felt were close to what I thought MCC was going to be, and that was one of the ones I grabbed.
Good choice. So moving on to the Rover, James, what is the Rover?
This is a direct quote from page 32 of the Mutant. Everyone grab your Mutant Crawl Classics handbook and please turn to page 32. You are the rogue, the wily scoundrel, the explorer who always seems to turn up on the other side of a computer-locked door. You've specialized in circumventing the tricks and traps of the Ancient Ones, and this makes you a valuable addition to any Seeker team. Any Seeker team setting out to plunder forbidden ruins and ancient installations. Seeker team setting. I can't say it. That's
tough. A mouthful.
Yeah. It is. So the role in the party of the Rover, I think it's kind of similar to the Thief in DCC, but much more specialized in dealing with security systems and AI, and a clear range combatant given their improved bonuses for missile weapons.
Yeah, I think in some ways, the Rover is somewhere between a thief and a ranger in your classic fantasy role-playing systems. But, they're leaning more towards someone who's really good at jerry-rigging systems. And then to me, that's an implication. I mean, they're explicitly given rules for security systems and AI. But I think of them as being really good at jerry-rigging probably a lot of stuff. And, of course, they are able to sneak a little bit better than your average Sentinel.
Sure. So rule-wise, you've got a D6 hit points. You got the standard, pure strength human AI recognition, a boosted Darwinian luck. You got +2. You have 2 luck you regain every 24 hours instead of 1, which is pretty awesome. I think you're going to be making so many skill checks. That's kind of nice to have that on your side because you got this artifact doors and security systems ability, an increasing bonus that moves up level by level. And, read between the lines here. And this is what it says. Being quite stealthy individuals, rovers have increased chances of remaining undetected by ancient security systems or even other mutants. So this is your catch-all stealth mechanic, thief skills mechanic.
Yep.
So, okay, question then. And a question for you, Judge Forrest, since you're the only one here with me. Should judges allow players to apply their appropriate skills? So a second level rover has a +3 artifact doors and security systems modifier. If they have an agility of 16, do they get a +5 instead?
Yep, I think so. I would rule that way. Maybe I'm being overly generous, but I would rule that way. Yeah,
and I would agree. I think maybe a little more open-ended. Our rover never uses his skills for whatever reason, so he's more just shooting stuff. I think he plays it for the missile attack bonus. So I think I'd like to see it played where the player tells you how they're going to do something, and then we'll apply what seems the most appropriate.
And again, that goes back to role playing.
Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff. Let's see, they also get the +2 to their AI recognition rolls like the Sentinel.
Yep.
And their Darwinian luck replenishes at a rate of 2 luck every 24 hours. That could come in handy. You can't overstate that. That's really nice.
No, we can't. We actually both said it. Because I did that part already.
Oh, that's right.
So, whatever one sounds best, Hector, go. But, we can't overstate it. You're right. So, All right, so what's working? What's working for the Rover class? So with the right stats, high agility and intelligence, this is such an awesome scout class. So just to what you said, Forrest, a bit of a ranger and a thief combined. Better at ranged combat than other classes, save for the Sentinel, which it's matched for. Although the Sentinel, when you add artifact bonuses, the Sentinel is the ultimate badass.
That's killing machine.
Absolutely. What do you think works for the Rover?
I would agree with you. I mean, I really like the idea of almost, forgive the analogy, but an Aragorn-esque type player in a post-apocalyptic setting. There's Viggo Mortensen again.
He keeps showing up.
I know. He's like herpes. You can't get rid of him. But yeah, I just love that aspect of the class. And to me, if it came down to it, if we had a real life apocalypse, yeah, you'd have a few strong people remaining here and there. But most people who were survivors would probably survive this way. They would sneak, they would steal, they would, break into places. And they would be very careful the way that they're scouting around so that they're not going to get caught unawares out in the wastelands by cannibalistic whatevers. So anyway, I really do like this class quite a bit. I almost chose to play one for the campaign, but I thought, I'm going to try something different. So I tried the Sentinel instead.
We didn't have a Sentinel, so it's cool we get to have one. But I think isn't Craig playing a Rover? Did he not play on Wednesday?
No, he was there. I couldn't tell who was playing what, honestly. So I knew what I was playing, but I was trying to figure that out the whole time. We have one mutant in the group who's obvious because he has an insect carapace type thing, armor.
Andy,
yes.
Yeah.
But for the rest, I was trying to figure it out. I couldn't make heads or tails of it.
All right, so what are the challenges? What's not working for your Rover? And my thought are you have no mutations, you have no wetware, you have no healing abilities. The Rover could be the most boring character class in Mutant Classics, but I've chosen those words carefully. I think Rovers need to work a little bit harder and prove themselves to be more than just a pure strain human with less combat abilities than a Sentinel. They got to work for it. They are going to have to fight for the niche artifacts. You're going to have your healers are going to be scrambling over the healing artifacts. Your Sentinel wants every weapon. As a Rover, you got to be a scavenger, a scrounger. You got to rely on cunning, the weird things people don't want. That's what you're going to be getting, especially if you're in a heavy, pure strain human party like our group is. Mm-hmm. You got to work for that swag.
Yeah, I like the challenge of playing a character like this. I really do. Look, I'll tell you briefly about a character that I played in a campaign in that very, very famous fantasy role-playing game. I played a 50-year-old man, kind of a pot-bellied, aging desk worker who decided because of a midlife crisis to take up adventuring. I think he had a constitution of 4. I think we rolled he had severe asthma. But since the character had no real skills in adventuring because he'd been working at a desk his whole life, he became a fighter because his strength was adequate. But his other stats were terrible. But frankly, I had a lot of fun with that character. And I had a lot of fun because of his weaknesses. And I could see something very similar happening playing a Rover in MCC. But I like the underdog, so, the kind of character suits me very well.
The only reason I didn't play a Rover was because my character was a shaman and had really high intelligence and high personality. So for me, it's it'd be crazy not to take a shaman, I thought. Mm-hmm. So what are some examples in fiction of Rovers?
I could only think of a couple, and I might be stretching the definition a little bit. I don't know. The first one that came to mind was the Gyro Captain from the Road Warrior. He doesn't have a name. It is literally the Gyro Captain. I know because I looked it up. He's this sleazy, sneaky guy who uses a crossbow and has really bad teeth. But he was no dummy. He was really, really intelligent, actually, except Mad Max happened to be smarter than him. So anyway, if you go watch The Road Warrior, I think the Gyro Captain is a pretty good rover. Also, I thought of Snake Plissken from Escape from New York.
Okay.
He fought. I get that. He was, he fought in the arena and all this kind of stuff, but he was actually pretty sneaky too, and really good with a gun. I think he relied on subterfuge as often as he did, punching people in the face. So he's borderline. He'd be a borderline between a seeker and a rover, but I think you could play him as a rover. What examples do you have, James?
I too had kind of a challenge because I was trying to pick characters I thought were a little bit techie with security systems, and like one of the ones I thought of, and I took it off our notes, I just added him back, was maybe Nux from Fury Road.
Yep.
So that was the one war boy that is the starting driver. And I guess you could say not the starting driver, but the driver that has Max as his blood bag. Yes. And maybe you could say he's a Sentinel. It's tough, but I gotta think that those guys that were like, they work on cars, they're, the war boys are both mechanic as well as, I don't know.
Yeah, I would too.
He wasn't the best fighter, and I'm going on his fumble die roll when he tries to leap from the car, with the Morton Joe onto the truck. He blows it. Now he could be a Sentinel at roll 1, but I guess mediocre is all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
The two that maybe are closer to the Rover. One is we're going to delve back into the movie that Judge Forrest keeps saying doesn't exist, and that's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. If you have Blaster, you need to have Master, okay? Because Master Blaster. And Master was the Rover, okay? So he got that whole pig farm fuel thing working, right?
True.
So if he worked all that out, I think he's the closest to a Rover there. And then maybe the closest possibly it'd be Dozer from the Matrix.
Yep.
So Dozer's the guy that's on the other line in the calls in the Matrix who lives in the real world and not in the Matrix, and he doesn't have the hookup, to go into. That's why I thought the hookup, but he doesn't have that port in the back of his neck.
Right.
Why in the Matrix don't they have Wi-Fi?
I don't know.
Probably because there wasn't really Wi-Fi yet in the real world, right? I guess.
Maybe the robots just didn't want to make it available. I don't know.
Was there Wi-Fi in 2003? Before it was 2001, wasn't it?
2001.
2000, I think.
I think it was 2000, yeah.
There wasn't Wi-Fi yet, was there?
Not that I remember.
Anyway, so I guess they could broadcast, kind of like whatever. All right. So anyway, I think Dozer from the Matrix, he could hack into stuff. Maybe any of those characters, probably any of the characters really from the Matrix, they probably would all be Rovers. They all can hack security systems, and they're only Sentinels and they only know Kung Fu when they're in the Matrix itself.
That's true. That's very true. And dodging bullets.
Yep.
Very slowly.
So that's our take. That's our take, guys. That's our take on the Pure String Human Classes parts 1 and 2. And we will follow up with the Healer and the Shaman on a future episode.
Yes, we will. Should we move on to the mutagenesis?
It's time to mutate.
Mutagenesis.
Welcome to the mutagenesis. This is where we take something from media or another game system and take a stab at converting these things for MCC RPG use. So, James, what do you have for our mutagenesis today?
Fur burning.
Ew.
So that's what I've got, is fur burning. And I'm going to apologize, folks. This is a bit of a rehash to anyone who's read my blog in the last year, but I've mutated this rehash so it's more appropriate for Mutant Crawl Classics. Earlier this year, I cooked up a blog post called Dead Mice, which was my Mouse Guard meets Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game quick conversion. Now, if you don't know what Mouse Guard is, and that was the original, inspiration for this, Mouse Guard is a comic book series. I think David Peterson, is the author of the Mouse Guard comics.
I believe that's correct.
I love Mouse Guard. It's my favorite comic book graphic novel series. I'm actually reading it to my son right now. We just finished volume 2 last night.
Oh, awesome.
And we're going to move on to the Black Axe next, which is like a prequel. So we love Mouse Guard in our house, and I'm a big fan of the series and the idea behind the RPG book, which is by Luke Crane, and it's Burning Wheel based. Unfortunately, Burning Wheel burns my brain, because when I try to run it, literally my brain comes out of my ear and stains my shirts. I cannot grasp Burning Wheel, and when people tell me, they walk me through trying to grasp it, I don't want to understand it more. I'm like, I've had enough. That said, I love the art, I love the detail in the book, so I came up with earlier this year a way to run Mouse Guard with Dungeon Crawl Classics. I actually ran the Madhouse Meet, which is a Lankmar adventure. I called it the Mouse House Meet. I ran that earlier this year for our game club. Well, fur burning is something that we're going to say manimals can do, in which they burn themselves back to a more animalistic state by sacrificing intelligence to do certain animalistic things.
Makes sense.
And in the original Mouse Guard RPG, there was this thing called nature. So every character had a raw ability called nature. And the higher the PC's nature in Mouse Guard RPG, the more feral and actually mouse-like they appear. So I wanted to capture this element, and here's how it works. So in my original notes, a mouse PC could elect to burn their intelligence temporarily to gain a positive modifier for climbing, hiding, and reflex saving throws. So I'm going to say for fur burning in DCC or MCC is your manimal characters could fur burn themselves to gain bonuses to 1 saving throw and 2 types of skills that would seem appropriate. So for instance, a wolf manimal, and this requires a judge and the player to have to first off say, we're going to let you use this crazy ass rule that Judge James came up with on Glowburn. So get past that part first, and then get to the part where the judge says, okay. So a wolf manimal could say they could burn point for point of intelligence to get bonuses to their sense of smell, like searching for something, maybe to running with plus 5 feet per point of expenditure, and fortitude saves to eat stuff, because dogs can eat anything. My golden doodle eats like t-shirts, like whole t-shirts, like, and swallows them whole and then pukes them back up.
Well, except chocolate. They can't eat chocolate, right?
They can't eat chocolate, but my lab mix ate a whole bag of tea candles with wax from IKEA and then crapped out metal for a week.
Yum.
So maybe you say that, my wolf manimal, I can intelligence of 12, you're hot on the trail of some mutant you're chasing, and the wolf manimal player says, I'm going to fur burn 5 points of my intelligence to boost my sense of smell. I would say that maybe to make this, you don't want to have intelligence be a dump stat, obviously, and I am saying you can get it back. So you make the players spend this at the beginning before they roll. They can't spend it afterwards. So they might be more inclined to use it and more at risk of losing it. That said, it's regained a point of 1 per day, but during that time, the player has to role play their character appropriately. Like if you're a mutant, like a manimal wolf, if you are at a 3 intelligence, you should be playing them as if they're a friggin' wolf, listening to basic commands from the party. So you have to kind of deal with that role-playing aspect.
So if you were a mutant ostrich, you'd be burying your head in the sand.
I think that would make sense, yeah. So a bonus to burying head in the sand, would make sense. Maybe the bonus to running would make more sense. Running and reflex saves would both make sense. And if you want to work that out, burying your head in the sand, maybe that could be will saves. Maybe you shove your head in a hole in the ground and you boost your will save.
Yeah, I like it.
So burn your fur, folks. Judge Forrest, what do you have?
All right, so
I know it's coming. It's like, I have to laugh because I'm seeing a picture of what he's going to describe here in a second, and it's glorious.
And I have to admit that I think I got my inspiration from Weird Al Yankovic at the beginning. But the item that I'm going to describe to you is the tinfoil helmet. Now, the tinfoil helmet doesn't actually have to be tinfoil. But seeing that it was invented by conspiracy theory-loving mad scientists who think the world is flat, it should be pretty goofy. Now, I've got a picture here that I
love it. I
will try to describe to my best ability, and we'll try to get in the show notes too, because this was great inspiration for this. So we've got these 2 kids dressed in these sweater vests and bow ties.
They're dapper little kids.
Yes, they are dapper young men. And they're wearing dark goggles like you'd wear for welding, but kind of a steampunk variety there. And on top of their heads is an upside-down pasta colander with capacitors glued on and a little antenna up on the top and wires going from the capacitors to the antenna and the legs of the colander. One of them has it strapped on with a chin strap. They're glorious. These kids look great.
I love the chin strap kid. Chin strap kid.
The other one, the bigger one, I actually have a 4th grade picture that looks a lot like that, except for the hat.
Is this you?
No, it isn't, but it could have been. It could have been.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to find that 4th grade picture and superimpose and see if we can Photoshop that in. In any case, the helmet should be goofy. Should be incredibly goofy. So goofy, in fact, that while you're wearing it, you lose a point of personality when you wear it. But losing that point of personality serves a purpose. So these rare artifacts allow the wearer to dampen or prevent the effects of some mental attacks. This is a useful thing for the poor, defenseless, pure-strain humans, as I mentioned earlier, in a world full of mutants. So a C cell gives the device 10 charges, F cell gives it 20, and a U cell unlimited, as U cell would indicate. It's tech level 4, complexity modifier of 6. Now, the wise pure strain human who wears this will learn that by manipulating knobs, twisting dials, and even hitting himself upside the head, the tinfoil helmet will react and give some protection as follows. By expending 1 charge, you can add +2 to any will save against mind control or mental blast. If you use 2 charges, you move the result of a mind control or mental blast 1 step down on the result table. For example, a mutant using mind control against the wearer with a mutation check has a result of 23. The wearer expends 2 charges from the tinfoil helmet, which will push the result lower on the chart to the 18 to 19 range rather than that 20 to 23 range. If you spend 5 charges, it acts as a D20 mental shield as per the mutation. Glowburn is not allowed because a pure strain human can't glowburn. If you spend 10 charges, it acts as a D20 mental reflection, just like the mutation of the same name. And again, glowburn is not allowed, as a pure strain human cannot glowburn. So this artifact was built by and for pure strain humans, or something evolutionarily close to pure strain humans. Mutants, manimals, or plantians who attempt to use the tinfoil helmet will suffer an immediate mental feedback, which causes 4d6 of damage and knocks the wearer unconscious for 1d4 hours.
Wow.
So you can try it on, but it's not going to do you much good. Anyway, so for the pure strain humans who are running around terrified of the mentally mutated mutants around them, there's your answer.
That's a great trap. You just walk into a room, and that's on the floor. And the party fights over who gets to wear it. And, you know, if it's the mutant, manimal, or plantian, they die.
Yeah, pretty much.
It could be right next to the room where that rad roach or whatever you made that, you know, is
the shock roach.
The shock roach. It's in the next room. You go into the one room with the shock roach, you leave with your butt whoop. You go in the next room, there's a tinfoil hat sitting on the floor.
You're making me think now I should write something akin to the Tomb of Horrors for MCC. That could be fun. For me. I mean, it will be fun for the players.
Tomb of roaches and tinfoil. The tinfoil tomb of shock roaches.
We should make the tinfoil hats conductive too, right?
I think we should both make one of these, okay? And we should wear them to GaryCon.
Oh, I don't know if my wife will let me have the colander.
Oh, that's a good point. You might need to buy a new one.
Oh, yeah. I'll go to the dollar store and pick one up.
There you go.
The chin strap, though. How do they do the chin strap? I got to figure that out.
I have a colander that looks just like that. I could do the chin strap. He thinks I'm kidding.
No,
folks, he thinks I'm kidding. I would
you.
totally show up. We got to have this conversation offline. If you happen to see 2 people with colanders on their heads, they might be Judge James and Judge Forrest.
Well, then people might recognize me because, you know, if I go to a con with my fez on, they recognize me. If I take it off, they don't.
That's right.
So maybe if I have this on, maybe it'll, you know, get like pseudo recognition.
Put the fez on top.
Yeah, there you go. Boy, that thing will be like 3 feet tall.
All right. Let's wrap this up.
Let's do that. Thank you for listening to this episode of Glowburn. As far as announcements go, the print-on-demand version of the American Survival Guide is available now with your choice of awesome covers, either the Chase cover or the Delve cover. And we will include a URL there in our show notes. Also, GaryCon is coming more quickly than you might think. If you'll be running something there, tell us what you'll be running, and note that our own patron AI of audiovisual engineering, Hector the Missile Cruz, will be attending GaryCon for the first time this year, so come and see the true star of the show.
And Judge James, me, is like 70% gonna be there, okay? Every month, every show, it changes. I'll only be judging after hours. I got some ideas cooking, so trying to hold out here and have this happen.
After hours for our Triple X Strong fans?
Only Triple X Strong fans, okay? You know, bonus points of luck if you have a shirt that says Triple X Strong. I want a hat that says that. Glowburn, Triple X Strong.
Oh, you're going to get us in trouble.
Maybe. All right, how to contact us. On Twitter, we're at Glowburn. Email is glowburnpodcast@gmail.com. Please, questions, send them to us. Let us bask in their glory ahead of time. Google Plus, there is the Glowburn community. And you can find me at I Live for Crits, or go to my blog that has not been updated very much lately, livingforcrits.com, which not updated, and yet I just paid for 2 more years of my domain name. Go figure. Judge Forrest, how do we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Forrestagary. That's FORRESTAGUIRRE, exactly like it's pronounced. And you can also find my blog at Forrestagary, same spelling, .blogspot.com.
Special thanks and credits for our shaman of intros, outros, bumpers, Bob the Voice Brinkman, our patron AI of audio-visual engineering, Hector the Missile Cruz, all you creative advisors out there, our Google Plus community, currently 302 strong and forever XXX strong. Our intro-outro song is Chronox on the Voyager album by Juno. No, crap, that's backwards. Our intro-outro song is by Chronox on the Voyager album, and the song is Juno. And I guess to wrap things up, boys and girls, if you want your adventure seeds and you're in KG O'Brien's campaign setting, please refrain from consuming your NPCs before you pump them for information.
And I, for one, welcome the inevitable unholy reign of terror led by our Illuminati lizard overlords.
Thanks, everybody.
Ariel, Ookla, ride!
Tear down this
blood of your enemy makes you stronger.
This has been a Hectophonic production. The gun is good, the gun